Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Just dandy. I cannot believe we have one episode in the books already.
Yes, it worked. Finally.
It did work. I can't believe it. I mean, after all of the struggles to get started, I'm just glad that it's here. And it's one and done. And now we can move on to the next one.
Yes, exactly.
Cheers. Episode 1 in the books.
Cheers. Cheers with my cauldron.
I freaking love that.
My little witch's brew.
We did a refresher, Trail to Terror. We had watched it so long ago and then did it again and then took notes and then did it again. So now we did our homework and we want to talk about Trail to Terror. So for those of you that may be joining in that you don't know what we're talking about, we are going back to the beginning and talking about Destination Fear. We're rewatching all the episodes, talking about our favorite parts of it, sharing the history of the place, and we're going to get started where it all began.
Yeah, taking it all the way back to 2015.
My gosh, that seems so long ago now.
Right? Like,
holy
when
cow.
I was watching it, I'm just like, oh my God, 2015. Like, that's gonna be 10 years ago.
Yeah, Tanner had hair.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Everyone looked like a baby.
It really did.
Well, okay, disclaimer. No Alex in this video, people. Sorry. No Alex.
Yeah.
I know.
Alex fans, not there yet. He'll be there soon. Very soon. You will see his face. So if you don't know who does comprise the Trail to Terror, it is different than Destination Fear. So Dakota used to work on Ghost Adventures, like we talked about last time, and won a contest to be on Ghost Adventures, and then decided, hey, I want to make my own experiment. So he's no stranger to the paranormal, and he and his sister Chelsea, they lived in a house that was pretty terrorized by spirits, which I'm very excited to hear about on the podcast. That's going to be really fun. I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to, because it's going to piece all of these things together. It's like such a big story that none of us really know all the details to, that we all really want to know. And it really was the catalyst to start all of this. So I'm excited to know where it started, because that, I think, is what influenced them the most to start doing this and be in this industry and explore on their own. So this is kind of their first attempts at really doing that, of like living out Dakota's experiment. And Tanner's also there, and Coalin as well. So there's 4 of them, and now they're not the original crew from Destination Fear, but that is who is in the documentary. So Dakota's experiment is that, like, being isolated and alone really enhances the paranormal activity. So he wants to put that theory to the test, and they go to all of these different places to be able to do that. And, mission accomplished. Objective achieved.
And to quote him in the beginning of the documentary, fear is cool. And like, why, like, and Chelsea says it in the documentary close to the end. Like, why do we watch horror movies? Because we want to get scared. I love that feeling of the adrenaline rush and what's going to happen next, and suspense. And then when you're put into a location like that, you're living in a horror movie almost. You don't know what to expect. Especially, I love going way back into this. They're brand new. They literally just have their cameras and flashlights. We have no devices, no spirit box, no EVP recordings, no Estes method. This is just really, really raw and real.
Right.
Really. And that's kind of why I like it. And that's kind of why I think they might get more stuff happening to them, because a lot pops off in this.
Yeah, I think too, like, when it's just you and you're open to the whole, like, human experiment, and there is nothing to manipulate going around, like, you actually either have to hear something, feel something, or see something. Like, you can't, like, have a beep on a REM pod or a word jump across the ovulus. It's like, it's all up to, like, that human experience, which up until now, and you just said that, like, I never even thought about that, because they don't have anything during that time.
No. And that's like, when I rewatched it this morning, just to like get a good refresher on it, I was just like, they just have nothing, just a flashlight and a camera and themselves. not even like a static cam really set up. It's just like all them.
Right. Point of view, which, you know, like you were saying, horror movies, like Blair Witch is like the vibe that I always think about when I think of like point of view horror. And that's really, like what we got. And I think that, I mean, now too, they all have the same thing, but like you're saying, it's much more of like a production. Like there are things set up everywhere, so if they do leave a place, they can come back to it and they can look at that footage later or post it in the Fear Club for all of us to see. And that is really cool, and I really didn't think about that until you said it. So that's good perspective.
Yeah, I have a brain apparently. I try.
No, I do think that it makes a difference because it goes back to that whole like urban exploring thing. Like they say all the time, it's like we're not ghost hunters, you know, we're exploring the unknown. And like I think that it kind of has evolved right over them, and now they're interacting with more spirits or possibly demons and all these things that they didn't used to before. But I also think that's like just the natural progression of stuff. It starts off one way and then it just gets bigger and bigger. And whenever you have much more of experience under your belt, you're going to want to push yourself to the limits and do more of the scary things that you wouldn't before.
Yeah. And even fast forwarding to now, being on YouTube, they're finding other YouTubers using other devices. Not everyone uses the Lovely Spirit app, but now we're starting to notice like cat balls being thrown into the mix. Kind of thing, which is kind of cool too. So I like to see what other people can bring to the table, and then they can get these new ideas and try new things out, whether it works for them or not.
Right. Ever evolving. At least they're trying something different.
Exactly. And I love mixing it up.
Me too. It's always something that I can look forward to with them as well. You know, especially now collaborating with other YouTubers. Like I think that it opens up a door for a lot of different things to come their way.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited for what's going to come down the road.
Yeah. And the Trail to Terror, that trail led them to 5 different locations in the documentary. So we have Ashmore Estates, Randolph County Infirmary, Hillview Manor, St. Albans Sanatorium, Pennhurst. So now that is a poorhouse, a psychiatric hospital, an old folks home, a sanatorium, and an asylum. So all of those like different type of environments, the different types of spirits, different types of hauntings. So we decided that we wanted to pick our favorites out of the whole documentary and kind of talk a little bit more about those. So which though, like, so obviously we picked our favorites. However, if you had to go and pick one to explore, would you go to the one that you picked as your favorite to talk about today, or would you pick a different one?
That's a hard question because I'm already going to the one that I picked.
That's right.
Like, obviously, we'll be going to Pennhurst next month, which I'm super excited. That place was calling my name because I think I belong there. And it's just massive. Like, the building is huge. There's so much to explore. But looking back at all the locations they go to, I really think Hillview Manor is where I want to explore. It just seemed super interesting. And a lot happens. Like, stuff starts going off, sounds go off. They hear like a beep that sounds like an ER, like heart monitor thing. Like, once they walk in there, and then from your experience, from what you sent me, I was like, dang, like that place would be so cool to check out.
It is pretty wild. And I do want to go back there because it was my first time being there, but also my first time by myself. You know, usually I'm with somebody else. And so it was the first, I mean, other people were there, right? It was like a public ghost hunt. I'm not dropping thousands of dollars by myself to go to a location, right? So it's like you get on these public ghost hunts and the places are usually much bigger anyway. And just like that. And just like Hillview Manor. And so when I say I'm by myself, like I could be in an entire wing of the building alone. And it's kind of comforting knowing that like people aren't that far away, but it also still sucks because I know I'm alone.
Yeah, and you've got different levels too. Like, it's not just a one-story building. You've got a lot of
You have
a lot
like
of floors.
3 floors, you have a basement, you have a sub-basement. And so for those of you who maybe are not familiar with Hillview Manor, it is in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It opened in like 1926. It was a poorhouse for orphans, mentally ill, elderly persons. Pretty much anybody could get dropped off there that like didn't have any family left or didn't really have a place to go. So I think that like when you have those types of locations where it's just kind of like a dumping ground for misfits or outcasts or whatever that society has deemed to be undesirable at that time, it's really a place where clearly is a breeding ground for all of this negative energy to take place. So there's no, I don't think that it's shocking, right? That like so many mysteries have happened on there. I know a lot of the people that they interviewed said like, things were marked down as suicides that never really had a real explanation.
Yeah, like they would say some people were hung from trees. Some people jumped from windows and from the roof also. So
clearly people don't want to be there. Even if half of those things were like a cover up for some sort of like murder or accident or abuse or whatever, like you still had people wanting to take their life. This was not a good place to be at all whatsoever.
They said there was like 8,000 to 10,000 deaths that happened there that are on record. Like who knows if more happened, and there's cover-ups. Like you never know with these kinds of places back in the day.
Well, and I always wondered too, because in 1926, it was this like Lawrence County Home for the Aged, right? It was like, and that was still like the same type of environment. But then later in the 60s, when they added on that extra wing and then became Hillview Manor, where it was just an old folks home, I like always wonder about like, what were those exchange of hands like? You know, like, did it go straight from the Lawrence County Home for the Aged to the old folks home? Or was there like a period in time where it just sat there? And so if it did sit there, like how long was that? And like what type of, because I know that like from the tour that you go on before you go on a public ghost hunt, like they were having experiences there when residents lived there. So if this had been much more active even before, you know, they had Hillview Manor. And then when it shut down, I mean, that's when the really scary stuff I feel like started to take place.
That's when the spirits or ghosts or whatever's in there. Like, what did they say? Like an eyewitness claimed to see something called like the creeper that likes to hang out there.
Yes.
If that is its name, but apparently it crawled out of a room on the ceiling, down the wall. They like, she said a few people saw it, and then it just poof turned into like a black mist. And someone else saw like a skeletal like creature just kind of like down the hall, like wave at her and like
which is wild to me. I'm like, I don't even know
what the hell, man,
what I would do if like visually I saw something like that. It's different to see something come up on a device that you're using, but it's way different to see something with your own 2 eyes. And so that's the creepiest thing to me about that whole scenario, is that like you actually saw something. And when I went for my tour, and I'll get into this when we do Hillview Manor, the actual episode too, but you walk in and there's plaques and all of these different things to read. And one was a framed picture of a paranormal group, and one person in the paranormal group had died of a heart attack few days after their ghost hunt, their own private ghost hunt at Hillview Manor. And he was said to have seen this creeper. So he sees the creeper, this dark, shadowy figure who was like really tall, they had described, and then 2 days later dies of a heart attack. So I'm going into this totally immature, still am.
And all you've like seen was from like Destination Fear episodes. Like, this is all I know.
Besides like, you know, going around to some graveyards and some like, you know, abandoned things around here every once in a while, you know, to get that adrenaline rush. And then like we talk about it for like a month after. It's like this was something like totally intentional that I hadn't really had the chance to do just yet. And so seeing it, that was really almost like off-putting, because I was like, this is real. This is real life stuff. And so knowing like what happened in Destination Fears, and like also knowing what happened with them and their experiences on Trail of Terror, I was like, it makes it really believable that that story could have happened, and that could have been linked to this man's death.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. Just like walking in and seeing that, it's like, great. I drove this far, as you said in the last episode, it took you 3 hours with all those
3 hours round trip. So,
okay.
Well, it should have been, right? Like if Google Maps would tell you it takes an hour and a half to get there from where I'm at and to come back. But to go there, yes. For my pee problem, yes. It had to stop at like 6 gas stations on the way, but I was also chugging Red Bull to stay up for the entire night.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like an hour and a half drive, but to go there and know like you're just pursuing this passion or this hobby that you have, and then not expecting that like you'd be dead a couple of days later.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, here we go. Do you have to sign a waiver like going in?
Yes, you have to do all these different, I think there's 2 different things that you sign, and then you'll make sure that you get there early enough and they go over their safety speech and let you know like what you can encounter and whatnot. So the staff was really great too. They had so many stories on their own. But walking into that place, so in Trail Terror, when they do walk in and like you see all those exit signs and all of them illuminating it, the place is a freaking maze. I was getting lost like everywhere I turned. I felt like I was like I couldn't imagine where the next thing would be, right? Like if I went that way, I'm like, I don't even know what is around the corner. I should, because I'm on this floor or in this part of the building, but it just felt like no matter where you turned, you never knew where you were going to end up.
Yeah, because it just seemed like there was an exit sign every like spot. There'd be like 3 and the place would just be illuminated by just red. So it just seemed like if you turn this way, if you turn that way, it's just like it all looks the same.
Yeah, and like, it's so creepy.
And like you're in the dark probably most of the time unless you're using a flashlight. But
and like that was the thing for the hunt was that I didn't want to use any of my flashlights, because if I ran into somebody 2 floors down or whatnot, I didn't want to like mess with whatever they were trying to do or, draw any attention to myself. So I spent most of my time in like 2 different rooms, and I'm really excited to talk about that whenever we get into our Hilton Manor episode too. But I think that like just the hesitance that they have in each step that they were taking, like they get to a hallway and it felt like the whole group just paused at the same time. And you just get that feeling that it's like, should I go on what's around this corner? And I could really see that in their posture and in their body language. And I think that that's when I really knew too, like, they're really scared.
But plus also this location was their 3rd location that they were at. So we have to also take into accountability of like sleep deprivation. And then you're like in the dark, you're tired, your senses are heightened. And once they even like walk into Hillview, like things start happening. They start hearing like noises, like something being thrown at them. Then that beep happens. And they can't like figure it out, which is kind of weird. And then they start hearing like moaning in the hallway. Like things start going off quite quickly.
For sure. I think that was like, I know that it's hard because I've never been, I mean, yes, I've been alone in this exact location, but I've never been like alone, that I knew that I was alone in the entire building, that the only people that were around me right there were the only other humans. Yeah. So that's totally different. But I will say, like, Chelsea's going to get a bad rap in season 1, but for her screaming. But if I was hearing audible noises for the first time, because this is, she's like, I've never heard something like this in my life.
Yeah.
And she grew up in a haunted house. So you would have to take into account that like her experience and saying like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard anything like that, probably carries some weight. If you lived in a haunted house for that long, like 100%. I have to take your experience into account that was really scary. And I've never heard anything like that with my own ears. So I don't know how I would react at all. But just seeing her like first in Destination Fear and now Project Fear and then going back, I was like, whoa, she has grown so much from Trail Terror until now.
Oh yeah, like definitely they have all grown just from like the beginning. But they first hear that moan like once, and then she is like closest to that hallway area, and then it's like crazy loud, and you can like visibly see her. She's shaken up, she's crying, she screams. Tanner goes into like fight mode, like standing in front of her, like ready to knock somebody out. 6'3" tall dudes ready to go. But at first, when I watched it, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Like, that would be freaking crazy to hear something, especially if you've never heard anything like that before. But as I rewatched it, so this was the third location, she gets so upset when she's picking the location to where she sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts saying, I keep picking the worst one. I keep picking the worst one. But she really doesn't.
Right.
Then this location, she buddies up with Dakota. And like, while they're sleeping, nothing really happens. All you hear is like a bang or a clang on like a pipe or something.
Something metallic.
Something, like. Yeah. And that really was all that happened after that. Like, right. The most that happened was like they were all together, the four of them. They were in a group. And then the night before, I think she was just in that jail cell and there was like some shuffling happening, nothing really. And then the first night, she was all giddy about the spot that she got. She's like, yay, I have the best spot. And I was like, dude, you are picking all the wrong spots.
I think it's like this foreshadowing for what is about to happen for her at the next location.
Yes, maybe. I think it was just, you know, when you get nervous, but you're excited for something, and then once you're in it, you're like, oh shit, I regret this decision.
Immediately, yes.
Each location, I think it just started getting to her, and then eventually.
Well, I mean, even at the end of the well, I don't know if it was the end of the documentary or just some episode in the future, or maybe in the future, I don't know. But she does say like, hey, like, I didn't even quit that night. This was the location that broke me, though. Like, Hillview Manor was the location that broke her. And then later in the documentary, she does end the road trip early and she quits. So I think that, like, knowing that that was the thing that did it for her.
Yeah, for sure.
Was that whole entire experience. And what I think was crazy, that the timing of the whistling that happened, that really was the catalyst for the whole evening, is that they're like, okay, turn off your flashlights, let's go dark. And Tanner is like, fuck going dark.
Yeah.
They do it anyway, and then immediately it happens. It was almost like it was there and waiting for them to shut off all of their means to see anything and make them be even more vulnerable, and then it happens.
Well, if you think about it, like, when people aren't investigating there, it's dark all the time. If nobody's there, so if there's a spirit hanging around there, I'd imagine they prefer the dark. They prefer that illuminated exit sign of red blood that it looks like. That is super creepy. It's cool for effects, but
right, and it's cool too. Like, it's cool to experience because it does enhance the fear. So it's like you're already scared. Your adrenaline's pumping, and then you look in your environment, and sometimes if like you just stopped and like looked at it and took in how creepy it is, you get even more scared.
Yeah, like in locations that don't even have that, I don't even know what would be creepier, because it's such like a low level lighting. Like, your eyes could play tricks on you. Like, every time I watch an episode of this show or another show, I'm that person, even with a scary movie, I'm always looking at the background. I have to look at like the background details, because I'm always thinking something's going to pop out. Are we going to see a shadow figure just like show up and say, hey, like, I'm looking for those orbs. Like, you never know. And if you have a little bit more light and you can see, your eyes can play tricks on you. Like,
yeah, they have this whole hallway that's called Shadow Hallway.
Oh,
and
fun.
So that was kind of like where the creeper was said to be or whatnot. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I can't. If I see this thing, I'm not ready to die. I don't have a will. Like, I don't have anything set up. Like, I can't do this. So I just stayed away from the hallway. But the hallway, it's like one of the longer hallways that doesn't have anything coming out at it, right? Like, sometimes there's like a fountain over here, or this door is like a lot bigger and it has something on it, so like you can see kind of like a marker where you're at. This one is just like, it looks just like this straight tunnel, and all you can see are these red parts like illuminating different sections. And so that's the thing that I think is, yes, probably the scariest one. But I did not spend a lot of time there, and I don't think that, I can't remember if it's the second or the third floor hallway. I don't know if one of them is actually in the shadow hallway, but I was kind of surprised that like nothing happened for the rest of the night.
Yeah, like in the episode, because the second floor west hallway is where Dakota and Chelsea end up sleeping, and that is right outside the room that they heard that moan. And they have that little bang and clang, and then Tanner and Coalin are on the third floor main hallway, and I don't think they even wake up. They don't even show anything. Like nothing happens. I guess they had a good sleep.
Yeah, that's my other thing is that I can't remember which location it is, but Chelsea was sleeping and was like, hey, this was heard on Chelsea's camera, but she didn't actually hear it and she was sleeping. And I was like, I mean, with the sleep deprivation in a lot of these places, I'm sure that you could probably just like conk out. You're so exhausted, you just laying there and it happens. But I think it would take a lot for me to fall asleep at one of these locations.
I don't even know if I could fall asleep just from like the adrenaline, because I can't fall asleep on a plane, in a car. Like I'm kind of the same way like Tanner. Like I have to be the driver because like I just can't stand being a passenger. And if I'm a passenger in my own vehicle, it feels wrong, really and weird. This person should not be driving my car. Like, and my car is my baby, 10-year-old baby. So, yeah,
10-year-old baby.
my 10-year-old Jeep. But yeah, like, I feel like I'd be awake the whole time.
Yeah.
If I was super, super tired, like doing a 5-night trip, like maybe on night 4, night 5, I would just conk out.
Well, on night 5 is like, I think the scariest one of the entire documentary, and it's yours. It's your favorite that you would pick. So Pennhurst Asylum and State School. And we're, like you said, going there next month. And so for the road trip to end with Pennhurst, knowing like what it is, where it came from, one of the most iconic haunted places really in the whole United States. The fact that this one is in there in the documentary was, one, impressive to begin with, and 2, knowing that you saved it for last, like, what were you
Good
thinking?
choice. Good choice.
How could you be that sleep deprived over so many nights, over and over and over, and know that you saved the biggest and the best and the baddest for last?
Yeah, like that place is massive. Just the drone footage that they show, it's just like building. It's a huge property and it's in the bush, really. It's not like located beside like any other properties that are close by. And I find the scariest thing about that place, because there's so many buildings, it's pretty decrepit. Like it's breaking down. You never know if you've got a squatter hanging out, a homeless person. Like, how do you know? It is so creepy to think about a person just hanging out there. Like, I think people,
what Chelsea says too is like, hey, not only do we have this element of fear where there's spirits, but there's a really true blue fear that somebody could be on this property, and eventually they do end up running into somebody. So it's like fears are then realized, and not on this documentary, but like well into
down the road
explorations. So it's a real fear, and I think that would be the other thing that I couldn't get out of my mind. Would be, am I seeing something that is totally paranormal? Am I seeing something that's real?
Yeah,
just real in real life.
Like the craziest thing, like once they enter that building, obviously at this point, Chelsea is tapped out. She's flown home. She can't handle it. So it's just the 3 of them. We're down a person. They enter the Mayflower building, and literally once they enter it, and the first time I watched it, to me, it sounded like it was someone like singing, like they hear a man's voice. But when I rewatched it today, it literally sounds like a guy saying, "You shouldn't be in here." And I was just like, oh my God, that is so messed up. Like, if you go back and listen to it, like it literally sounds like him saying, like, "You shouldn't be in here." And then,
and I wonder if one of the like residents or patients would have said something like that to someone. Like, there were staff members there. So, well, before we get into that, I guess, like, tell them a little bit about the history, like, right? Like, if you don't know and you are just tuning in for the first time and you're like, what the hell is Pennhurst State School and Asylum? We got some history for you.
We got a little bit of history. Obviously, they go back to this location, so we'll do more of a deep dive on it, and then we'll do a deep dive on it once we're in the tunnels ghost hunting for about an hour.
Yes.
We may or may not survive or come back. You don't know.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But yeah, Penhurst in like 1903 to 1908, the first buildings were constructed. So this is way back, taking
way old.
So much history. The mentally ill were sent here, and they were pretty much sent there to be separated from society. Mm-hmm. They were isolated. They were considered to be different, which is why I feel like I belong there.
I think they say like some of those things that could have gotten you like sent to Penhurst was that like you had I don't know, like PMS or something, like
like not
you could just go there. Your family member could like drop you off and be like, hey, they're pissing me off at home. And it was usually like women, right? And it's like, here you go, take my wife.
Bye, Felicia. Like I don't want to deal with you anymore, which is super sad. And there were about like 10,000 patients that were there. They were mentally ill. They were physically abused, sexually abused, even murdered. And the sad part was like listening to the guy they interviewed who went there when he was younger. Mm-hmm. And he was like, just seeing people, they were like unclothed. They were like handcuffs to like cages and cribs, and they were like hitting each other and doing all this stuff. And I just like couldn't imagine going in there. And he even said like there's feces everywhere, and like there would be like open wounds, someone with like a broken bone that needed to be tended to. It was like there was too many people and not enough staff to handle it. And it was like sad to even hear him talk about it, because I remember him saying he like drove home with his parents and he just started crying.
Yeah, he's like, I wouldn't even put like my dog there for the weekend. And I was like, that just like blows your mind for a second.
And yeah, that hits home. It's like I can't even send my dog like to the kennel. Like, well, okay, she used to be a sled dog, so she lived at a kennel and I saved her from where I used to work. But like even to now think about putting her in just like a friendly kennel for the weekend, I can't do that. That gives me anxiety. And it's crazy to think like Penhurst was considered like the shame of Pennsylvania, and then eventually the shame of the state. Like that is crazy to me. Like, and then 1987, it officially closed.
Which is wild that it was like even up until that long, especially because the guy that they interviewed like had come there so much earlier. And that's why I think that like what you thought that you heard of like you shouldn't be in here, like don't come in here, like makes sense with all of those different abuse accounts. Like if somebody's coming into like your room late at night to maybe like harm you or do whatever, cheers.
Just open a beer. I need to refill the cauldron, everyone.
Absolutely. Do your thing. I do think that makes sense though. You know, like if you knew that somebody wasn't going to be in your room at that time, and maybe they were coming through or they were walking down a hallway and that's not their hallway to like patrol, it would make sense to somebody to be like, oh, you're not supposed to be in here. Like, don't be in here.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's so clear. Like, is that a person? Like, is that an actual person? Like,
right.
You never know, but that's freaky. Like I had to like turn up my volume and rewind it, and I'm just like, it literally like go back and watch it. And if you hear forever, like who's watching or listening this, if you hear the same thing, like let us know in the comments. But that is
I'm gonna have to go back and do it now because I'm like, did I notice that? What did I think that it was? Or
like I literally thought it was someone just going like, and then I'm like, this sounds like someone talking. Like.
Well, and I think too, with the entire environment that we've been discussing, like it affects them emotionally, I think, on a very different level than all the other ones. Like I feel like Hillview Manor really, like, affected them, like, psychologically and physically, you know, like, they were feeling like they were nauseous, that they were gonna throw up, which really is foreshadowing to what happens in the actual Hillview Manor episode of Destination Fear. Sorry, Alex, but, that's a whole foreshadowing situation, but I also think that, like, those are 2 very different elements, but when you get into a place that's just so laden with these really awful experiences, that there were so many accounts of abuse, people weren't taken care of, there were people that were malnutrition, like, I think then it does start to take a toll on
Yeah.
you emotionally because you can feel all of that there.
And actually, I kind of had, like, other people in the Fear Club might have had the same conversation, but me and Connor were talking, and he asked me, like, what do you think is scarier? Like, big abandoned buildings or, like, small haunted houses? And my answer to him was, like, you know what? It's more of the history to me. Like, yes, a big location is scary, but if you were by yourself, 100%, that would be terrifying. But knowing that you have, like, 3 other people with you, but just, like, it's so sad to hear, like, such a big building has such a sad history, and, like, a haunted house is a haunted house sometimes.
Right.
It's small, and you're tight fit, and you don't know what's going to happen.
3 families over 60 years, you know, in a house, rather than, like, thousands of patients that experience this every day.
Exactly, and, like, some of the locations they go to in this, it's like, they're testing lobotomies, they're testing electroshock therapy, like, all that wild stuff that, like, you don't want to experience today, that's for sure.
No, and to me, like, being in the mental health field, so I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I see I treat the gamut of people, right? Like, I think the lowest that I usually serve is, like, 12 years old, but I've seen people in, like, their late 60s, right? So, and I've done it all, groups, families, like, individuals, my niche is couples, because I think that's, you know, my bread and butter. That's, like, my calling to the world. But, like, coming from the mental health field, knowing how they were desperate. Like, now we can look back on all of those things and be like, I can't believe that they were doing these crazy experiments. Like, you have to realize how, one, we had no real knowledge of what was happening, you know, of what conditions some people really did have. And there was no treatment, you know, or there were very limited options. And so when you look back that far into, like, our therapy, medical history, all of those, like, we're so much more advanced. At the time, it was like they thought that they were really helping these people. You know, they were like saying, hey, this is the new leading thing. This makes sense that this could work. Let's do it. So while we see it as, like, torture and abuse, and let's be real, it was, they didn't really know. And sometimes they did, and they, you know, they would inject them with certain things to, like, make them just, like, calm down. You know, they were using restraints and tying people to bed for days and days and not giving them food. I mean, that is straight up. When we're talking about the medical history of that and, like, the therapy world, like, they really thought that they were helping, which is makes it 10 times sadder because you weren't.
Yeah, like, I couldn't even imagine, like, I feel like lobotomies now are, like, a horror movie thing.
Yeah.
Like, things with eyes, like, going into your eyes, like, that's freaking messed up. And, like, for this long of a device, like a metal device, going into your eye, tap, tap, like, no.
Nice pick, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, like, I could watch it on a scary movie. Easy peasy. But
when you think about it, like, happening in real life, it's a totally different story.
It's nuts to me.
And now, like, I'm going to refill. So when you hear my stuff cling and clang.
Sorry, Spotify listeners.
We're full, y'all. Cheers.
Cheers. The cauldron is bubbling, everyone. Bubbling
right.
With beer.
And if y'all do want to know what we're drinking, mine is Dragonberry rum with 0 sugar, pink lemonade. Very refreshing. I put it with some, like, blueberries in there sometimes, and then I'll let them soak in it, and then I'll eat them after.
Oh, that's so much more exciting than me. I'm literally, I've got a couple cans of kokanee beer just sitting on my desk here. Do you guys have that in the States? Kokanee?
No, not at all. When you sent it to me the other day, I was like, I don't even know how to pronounce this.
Kokanee.
What is this?
BC beer, everybody.
The official sponsor of Spooky Happy Hour. No, I'm kidding.
No. Okay, it's like water, like Coors Light out here is water beer. So it's kind of like a Coors Light. I guess you guys don't have Molson Canadian. Durr. But yeah, it's like a Bud Light almost, like just water. But a nice person at my work decided to buy a box of it. So sometimes we have a little drinky poos at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to continue this party. And this was Friday, and I bought a box.
And we had podcast last night and today. And so the party did continue. Let us know in the comments, too, if you are enjoying a drink and listening to us. Let us know any type of cocktails or mocktails, or if you just want to share what you like and what you're into. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, like
a little icebreaker from all of the abuse talk and all those other things that make us so sad and upset. And I'm like, okay, well, we can drink to forget about it. Just don't forget about us.
No, don't forget about us. Also, because we were talking about Trail to Terror, I thought I should wear my Trinity to Terror shirt. Great concert that I went to last March. 3 bands, $65, and a great night.
Hey, you can't beat that.
Good. No, yeah. So whoever likes metal music, Ice Nine Kills, Black Veil Brides, Motionless in White, we're best friends.
They're your recommendations. Not only do you get booze recommendations, you get music recommendations, and you get a pretty kick-ass summary of Trail to Terror. And I'm excited because Pennhurst 1, obviously really iconic, like we've been saying. There's so many things that do happen to them and that they do get emotionally affected. And what do you think was your favorite part? I guess before we go into like what we're excited about when we do go to Pennhurst, what was your favorite part of their experience at Pennhurst?
At Pennhurst, honestly, like just them going into that one room. At one point, Dakota's neck starts hurting, and he just like has to take a break. And I think this was like the breaking point for kind of everybody. They start hearing almost like a little child scream. Dakota then gets like physically like upset, like he starts to tear up a bit, and I think everything then just started to like hit him all at once. But then you've got Coalin just like shh, like so serious, like I want to hear this, and he was like determined to hear it. And I was just like, yes, like trying to figure it out. And they like go into the hallway, and it's almost like either something was trying to get them to like move around, or it was different spirits, but a lot seems to like pop off, and you're hearing a lot of stuff. And I'm kind of excited when we go, if we even get to experience that. Like there's gonna be so many people there. Oh, my light just turned off in the background. Oh well.
Like, is that a paranormal related thing? We're talking about all of these things, and I'm like,
I don't know. There's a Project Fear poster.
Hey, in our one video, you know, you saw the orb come and like shoot across your face. So I am not going to be surprised if this continues to happen, because, you know, I get random texts from you that say, hey, by the way, I got scratched again, or hey, this other thing happened, and you get the same for me. So something is bound to happen while we're on the podcast.
I know how like I find it funny because I've brought up the scratching thing to a couple people, and I'm so nonchalant about it at this point because I'm like, whatever. Like when I physically feel the burning, that's kind of weird, but sometimes I feel nothing and it just happens. And when I see, like, if I watch someone like get scratched on Project Fear, like it is kind of a wild thing. Like the latest episode with Sam and Colby, somebody, I won't ruin it, but somebody does get scratched, and the burning sensation is such a weird sensation. Like there's no other way to describe it. Like it's almost like a sunburn. Like someone's just like creating a sunburn.
Itchy. You know what I mean? Like you know how you get that like second day like sunburn, but it's like it was like itchy. Like when we go into our Ohio State reformatory episode, I'll definitely talk about this more in depth too, but like that was the only time in my entire life that I've ever been physically affected, and it was a scratch, and it was right on the back of my neck. And so it was just like, we were sitting there in the daylight tour, right? And
Ugh.
I was just like, I had this feeling, like this really weird, icky feeling. And then I felt the burn, and then I just wanted to itch it, but I wanted to just take my clothes off. Like, I just wanted to take
Oh
my
my
sweater
God.
off because, like, you know, like you get overstimulated and like, for all the ladies out there, you might know what we're talking about, but like when you get like really overstimulated and your bra, you just realize how uncomfortable you are in your bra, and you're like, I must take this off right now.
Take
I
it
don't
off
care
now.
what I'm doing, who's around. I don't care how I'm getting it off. It needs to come off my body. That's kind of how I felt like. So like I needed to get out of my skin type of thing.
Oh,
And
weird.
so, and like the person that I was with at the time, I had said like, yo, check. And they're like, yeah, like that's like, you didn't do that. And I was like, I don't think so.
No. And that's the weird thing too. Like, you try to like take steps back and be like, did I do this? And then like you also feel like you're nuts. Which, talking about scratches, the 4th location that they go to, St. Albans Sanatorium, when they're interviewing that one guy and they show like an actual photo of someone being scratched there, and it looked like someone just took like a cat of nine tails and just went wha-cha, like absolutely insane. Like, nothing has been that bad, and I don't think I'd be able to sleep in my house if that it was that bad, but
no, not at all. And
it's so
just
crazy.
seeing it like is one thing, experiencing it is something totally different. And I wonder, like, I mean, knowing that, I feel like for Dakota, and I guess like I wouldn't speak for him, but in my observations, like through the entire 5 locations, even after like St. Albans, when he feels really shitty that he made Chelsea like stick with her location and then she had left afterwards and whatever. I think like emotionally though, like that was probably where he was affected the most. So not only are you at this location and you're experiencing all of these things and you're having that empathy, but you know, you're just coming off of a location where your sister quit because she had an experience that was just like too scary for her. She was already checked out the night before at Hillview. You're down a man, and you're at a place where people dump people that nobody wants to have anymore. So it's like, have you ever been really emotionally affected by any area that you've either like visited or like a story that you heard or a show that you watched about something like this? Like, have you ever been like emotionally brought to tears?
I've never been brought to tears. Sometimes I feel like I'm emotionless, but actually, like I've had a really weird experience just a couple minutes from Banff. There is a lake called Lake Minnewanka. It's really pretty if you come and visit here. There's like a loop that you can drive around. And there's this little break-off area, and it's called Ghost Bankhead. And you go down a set of stairs, and it's just old abandoned ruins of this coal mining town. And it's just the most randomest place to go. There's still like a little bit of the structure where the coal miners used to like hang their lanterns and stuff like that. And it's really pretty to see in the summer. You can see the mountains. But I think this was like when I first moved here. So we're going back maybe 5 years ago. I decided to go there at like, I don't know, like 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't change my routine. I had my coffee, had my breakfast, went for a drive. I felt completely fine. And then I decided like I wanted to take some decent photos. So I took like my DSLR camera with me. And there is an area where there's like a doorway. And I don't know if you've read into some stuff, like sometimes doorways can lead to portals. And you never know. And I thought it was a cool shot. And I took a snapshot, and literally after I took this photo, I felt like I was like almost like just drunk. Like it was the weirdest thing.
Weird.
I forgot where I was. I felt like I had been walking through like quicksand almost, or like my legs were stuck in the mud. And then I just felt like my vision went, my hearing went, and in the back of my
totally disoriented.
Just totally disoriented for no reason. And I was by myself. Like, there was nobody around. There was no tourists. Thankfully, there were no bears. Because that would have been fun.
Right, but, like that type of like double whammy, like not being able to like access your bodily functions to like move and go, and then actually being in real danger.
Yeah, and whenever you, if you ever visit the mountains, always carry bear spray with you. I have ran into a grizzly bear that was 20 feet away from me. Thank God. Yeah, thank God it was eating someone's trash because my dog didn't notice it, and I was like, let's back away now.
We're gonna keep walking, yeah.
We're gonna back away and run, which you shouldn't do. Don't do that. But yeah, I was so happy. There wasn't a bear around. And this path that I was on, it kind of like loops around, and there's more ruins. But all I could think about was, sorry, I'm gonna bring up Ghost Adventures again. But this was where I learned things in the paranormal world. If you ever feel affected, or if you ever don't feel right, leave the location. And that was just like going on in my head. Get out of the location. Get out, get out, get out. When I started walking up the steps, I literally felt like I had done squats like the day before. My legs were burning. My legs just became like jello. Wow. Going up these stairs. And then I get in my Jeep, and I probably drive maybe 2 minutes. And I just like snapped out of it.
And it just all went away?
It just all went away. And I
hell no. So you know it was the location that really did it to you.
It was the weirdest freaking thing. And I drove home, and of course, like, it is a weird story. It is a weird experience. And honestly, when I was watching Ghost Adventures, and like at the time before Zach was always getting possessed, when he said he felt off, like that experience for me 100%. Whenever someone feels not right in a location, I get it. Like that was and I've never had that. Like, yes, I've been drunk, but it was
you're like, that was of like my own accord. Those were the consequences of my own decisions. This was not. I was just exploring, checking out a new place, and felt super affected.
Taking some nice photos, and it was the weirdest thing. It wasn't like I hadn't had enough food. I was like trying to debunk it. Like, I ate, I had coffee, nothing has changed. My routine didn't change. It was like 9:30.
I just saw the orb again.
I saw that
out
too.
Of your head. Did you? It like looked like it just came out of your head. I was like, what? At first I was like, I wanted to go like this with my like mascara, because I'm like,
I saw
did something come in like between it, like in my vision, and no, it wasn't. I saw it. It was there.
It's because I'm talking about it. It doesn't like when I talk about it. I don't know. Like, who knows? Like, I might have had something.
What if that is follow me home? That's what I was thinking. What if it's the whole like attachment thing that you and I were discussing like a couple of days ago? Like, do you think that that's possibly something that could have like,
honestly, the scratches didn't start popping. Sorry, Project Fear, but the scratches didn't start popping off until I started watching the live feeds in the Fear Club. Literally,
it happened again.
I saw that too. It's because I'm talking
about it. I know. I'm like, what is that,
just man? Stop, please. I know you want to be on camera.
Yeah.
If you really want to be on camera, turn off those lights. Since you already turned off my purple one, but anywho.
Bro, did you just see it go like this? Your light go like this in the back? It like dimmed and like came on, or is that how that works? Yes,
your little candle flickers.
Oh, like an actual candle?
It flickers. Though I do want to get that. There's that. I sent you a photo of it. The ghost hunting candle that you can use. I think you can get it at Ghost Stop. And it will turn on and off like flashlight. It's kind of a new thing. I think it also maybe smells like vanilla, but it does like this. Weird. I think it's actually also made out of wax. I have to like read into it more. Yeah,
please.
But I have noticed if any of the listeners or whoever's watching, if you guys do watch any of the Twin Paranormal videos, of late, they have been using those, and it's pretty crazy. Like,
I need to check it out.
There's one location, the freaky dollhouse that they go to. Sorry to get off topic, but they are almost used like a flashlight. You can say yes or no, turn this on for a yes, turn off for a no kind of thing. So I kind of like want to get one and like leave it on while we do this. But
just for like, one, some evidence, but two, like, I know if you're listening, you can't see what's really going on, but the last few times that we've jumped on, there's just like some sort of orb that comes into the picture and comes out. Now it's happened twice just in this episode. But it's something now that I'm going to be like on the lookout for. I wasn't before, even though I knew it was happening. Like,
you're going to be like me now. Always looking in the background.
Yeah, because now I'm just like looking out for you, but also because I want to be like, where is it? I need to find it. It's like looking for the duck in everything. Is there a duck in the trail chair?
Yes, there is in the beginning in the RV. Well, shocking.
Is it
Dakota is driving.
Is it the big duck? Was it, or is it the small one that they keep using?
It's a big duck.
I was gonna say I've definitely seen the big duck then.
Yeah. I think Dakota and Coalin are going to interview somebody. And you can just kind of see the duck. And I love that documentaries kind of just started it. Get that duck in there. I've got
I think
a little ducky right here.
I know, my ducks are over there. I think that I remember them saying that they even used the duck like when they were originally like doing YouTube when they were younger. That it like really predates even anything like spooky and paranormal. But then they started like bringing it into all of these things. So it starts from Trail to Terror, and then it's been in every single episode since then, which I also think is just like really cool. I'm the worst duck hunter. One, I always forget it's in the episode.
Yeah.
Like, it's the logo. It's, the whole kind of staple of it too. And I always forget about it. Sorry, Ducky, but I do. I always forget about it. And then if I do go back and try to find it, like I'm really, really bad at it. I can't. I don't know if it's just because I'm paying attention to so much other stuff at the same time, but it's like I cannot seriously sit there and just look for the duck.
No, I honestly forget to look for it because I'm more excited about like what they're gonna get. I think these past newer episodes that they've put up, I've been like, yes, I finally found the duck. And I also think it's like such a great thing in the Fear Club for people to be like, hey, did you see it? Sometimes I don't like when people post it though because I want to find it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad people do because then when I watch it the next time, then I'm looking out for it. But it's already because I already know the answer.
See,
like I don't want to do it on my own because I'm really, really bad. Yes, I'm really bad at doing it. So don't make me try to find it. Just let me know where it is, and I'll just like be mindful, and then I'll see it.
Oh, I saw that. Did you just see that?
No, was it down here?
It was like,
yeah, I was gonna say just like down here somewhere. I thought it was your hair at first that I saw like, get like brushed to the side, but I'm glad to know that, we're live debunking right now.
Yeah, so for the listeners on Spotify, there's an orb that just wants to be on the show apparently. We got a third
be like
person.
Our first guest.
Yes. What shall we name you? I gotta find a name. Mr. Scratchy.
Take out your spirit box. Well, we should do that one episode. No, I'm not allowed. My mother tells me that I'm not allowed to do any type of ghost hunting in the area in which I live because she would be afraid for me and my child. So she's always like, go out and do all of those things that you want outside of your house. She was like, but do not do it inside because you don't want something to live with you. And so I've promised her. I'm like, hey, I will make you this promise. I will keep this promise to you because I do go out and I do explore all of these things. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, I should probably not use my home as the place that I try to communicate with spirits.
That's so true. Like, I have a Ouija board just kind of like by my moonlight. It's like a 3D printed like moon, full moon, and I refuse to use it. It's just like I was
just gonna ask, like, have you ever used it, or is it just there for like
it's just
horror, spooky aesthetics?
Just spooky aesthetics, really. It was a gift, and I watched a lot of things, and here I go again. There was a Ghost Adventures episode way back when, and that
don't say the name.
No, I don't even.
Don't say the demon's name because that's the worst, the scariest episode of all time.
I literally, when I went home for Ontario, my niece's name is Zoe. And my brother kept calling her
Oh no.
He who should not be named. And I was like, don't say the name. Don't call her that. Don't call her that. That's freaky deaky, man. And like it like freaks me out. Like
it makes me nervous. You said that and my stomach started to hurt. Like it makes me
so
and I'm hot
nervous.
now.
And
I'm
then
like,
so when that Ghost Adventures episode came out, I go into rabbit holes, and I brought my mom in with me because she watched that episode and it was sketchy. And there's this like whole thing on YouTube. There are other people who experience random stuff. Yeah. And like whether if it's true or not, but it's just like if those people have never watched Ghost Adventures, like how is this name being brought up? Like
right.
I don't like saying it.
No, and don't. And for any of you who are listening or watching, go figure it out for yourselves. I don't care. You're not going to find the answer here.
Google it.
Own exploring about what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a creepy thing.
Well, I wonder though too, like how some of those like demons or even just like those types of spirits, like I really wonder how many of them are going to be at locations that we do go to. Like they've gotten like so much demonic, I think, like activity at several places that they've gotten, like Hillview Manor specifically too. And so I think that like when I'm going in there, it's like that's not something that I want to fuck with, you know, and it's definitely not something that I'm like going into. However, but when you're going into that space, like you're really sending the message of like, okay, I'm accepting whoever to interact with me. It's not like you get this like detector of like, oh, this is like a nice regular spirit or even just a mean spirit. And then versus the other end of the spectrum where it's like, this is something completely non-human.
And how, like, so many people go to these locations. It's just like, how do you not know it's just like a normal ghost just messing with you?
Yeah.
Like, because when people say the word demon, people just freak out. And if that gets brought up on like an Ovulus or like on the Spirit app, you can't, like, I'm such a skeptic with that stuff because it's almost like, how do you know that's what it is? What if it's a ghost just taking on that form and being like, hey, I'm going to mess with these people? Because like, if I was
how
dead,
fast do you want to get out of there if somebody says like demon?
Exactly.
You know?
Like if it was me and I was dead and oh, here come these people in my room again wanting to talk, automatically, I'm a demon, get out. People get out.
True. Yeah.
Like, how do you know?
You can't always take it for, you know, what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that they like the inverse is usually what people are trying to, you know, say like isn't happening. You know, when something does present itself as something completely okay and benevolent, it's like, no. Sometimes that does, you know, get presented so that you do get drawn in and then they can, you know, that demon could make their move, right? So it's like, the opposite is what I think that everybody usually focuses on is like, oh, there's this great thing and it's disguised for a demon. But like what you're saying too could totally be true is that like if you want to be big and bad and you want to pretend that you are, or you just want someone to leave your space, like you do want to scare them out. And maybe you don't have the abilities at that point in time to like shut a door or, you know, kick a ball down a set of stairs or whatever. So you're just like, I'm going to use the only thing I know how to, which is to manipulate one of these devices and give them a really scary word. And hopefully that'll just be enough for you to leave me alone.
Yeah. And I've even like, since I'm into all the paranormal stuff, I've heard like stories about there's like 5 stages of spirit. Like 1 is just like the orb. 2 is like when you physically see like a glowing ball of light. 3 is like a misty figure. 4 is, I can't remember. And then down the road, like I think level 5 is supposed to be like a shadow figure, and people assume a shadow figure is bad just because it's darker than the darkness. But I've heard stories of like if something is dead, it forgets what it is, and eventually it just becomes the darkness kind of thing. Like, how do we know? Yeah, like how do we know like what is going to happen when we die? Some people, I guess, have said like you can choose whether or not you want to stay on this planet and just become a ghost, or you can go to a higher realm. Like, we really want to deep dive into like the weird stuff.
Yeah, and maybe we should. Maybe we'll do a whole like episode on different like theories that we've like read or like what other people believe or whatnot. I think that would be really cool because although it's been something that both you and I have been super obsessed with since we were younger, like there's a whole world of this that I still don't know about, you know, that I haven't really deep dive into. So I think that'll be a really great chance though for us too to do something like that's different, right? Do something different besides what we're doing right now, which we love to do, yes, but this is also just like part of what we do want overall our podcast to be, right? Like we want to be able to explore these things. We want to be able to have different tales of horror and spookiness and these eerie things that happen to us or people that we know, or if we want to just deep dive into things that we don't know about. I always say that I'm a lifelong learner. So it's like, I want to be able to learn more, especially when I'm really interested about something. So I think that would be really fun.
And you can't know everything about everything. Like there's no way. Because even though like growing up, aliens used to freak the frick out of me. Like Signs was my terrorizing moment as a child. That movie terrorized me. Just like for whoever has seen Signs, you know the part I'm talking about. You know that part when Joaquin Phoenix is sitting in the closet and he's staring at the news and it's children in Mexico and that thing pops out of the bush. That was burned into my brain. Oh, yeah. And I was like, holy shit, like if that's what aliens are like, somebody pass. Yeah. No, thank you.
I'm gonna pass on that.
No, thank you. And eventually that movie became one of my favorite movies because honestly,
it's so fun how that happens because I think of the movies that really like messed me up too whenever I was younger, things that I would love to be able to like just watch and rewatch, and we do. And that's also something that you're going to get from us too. We are going to have a few episodes, I'm sure, when we like are reviewing some horror movies, like things that are coming out like really soon, and we'll also deep dive into like the movies that scarred us as children.
Yeah.
And so many. And I think that's going to be a really fun episode that I'm really looking forward to too, like in between some different breaks that we'll eventually take between Destination Fear episodes and whatnot. And I think that's going to be really fun because all of us have those. And we do want to hear not only your thoughts about today's episode, but anything that you want us to discuss. So like, comment, subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, follow us on Instagram, give us a shout out, slide into our DMs. Don't talk shit though. I'm not going to tolerate that. Don't talk shit. I'm the only shit talker that is allowed to be here. No, but slide into our DMs. Let us know what your childhood favorite like movies were too, and we'll do a little bit of a collection. Our next episode though, we do dive into really the show that started it all. So we had to go back to Trail to Terror. Now we're going to start season 1, episode 1, Brushy Mountain Penitentiary in Tennessee. So if you want to follow along with us, that's where we're starting. So head on over to Discovery Plus. I believe that they're on HBO Max now too. And check it out.
Yes, check it out. Like and subscribe. Let us know if you do like these videos, if you like what we're talking about, because we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep talking about the ghost stuff, the horror stuff, the spooky stuff. Every week, we will be here drinking a beer.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.